that whole term weak-minded, right? Typically what comes in my mind in weak-mindedness are things like no self-control, no boundaries, no discipline, easily influenced without the desire to verify for truth. You're constantly floating, you're not stabilized, you're not grounded, you're not in a firm foundation in anything. Okay. I tend to think of those things in terms of weak-minded. So it's interesting that typically the people who would classify Christianity, and I believe it was Imperial that raised a good point in here. He said, I wonder if those same people that call us Christians weak-minded use that same term for people that are Muslim, Hindu, or any other religion. And I think that is beautiful because they don't, right? They don't consider that, right? And so it's typically targeted towards Christians, towards that specific monotheistic faith. But I think the very people that would proclaim Christians to be weak-minded, I could easily say the same towards their own worldview, right? But here's why. Any worldview that doesn't carry a structure, doesn't carry boundaries, has no point of reference for why they do, move, or believe what they have, is a worldview that's chaotic. It's let loose, laissez-faire, let it be. And so these types of worldviews breathe the idea of a weak-minded persona. It breathes it, right? Because it literally makes room for anything and everything. People who don't want to take a stance for something because of being canceled, because of not wanting to stand out, to stand against, to make a stand, to say enough is enough. That definitely follows into a place of weak-mindedness. It took a free will in mind to even seek after God, to even understand and be willing to see what God has to offer. And then furthermore, choose to believe. All of that is free-minded, okay? Just as it's a free mind to reject God, not care for God, not want to search and dive deep into God to understand who God is and his existence and all of those things, that is also a free choice. People have freedom mixed up in a lot of ways. People think of freedom as like me having the will and way to do whatever I please, right? I have the freedom to do what I want, choose to say what I want, choose to approach what I want to approach. No consequences. I don't have to worry about anybody, repercussions and discipline and all that good stuff. I just get to do what I want. But truth is, that's not freedom, that's chaos. Freedom comes with boundaries. Freedom comes with restrictions. Freedom comes with principles that set parameters for your good. If we're on a football field, okay, and there are no sidelines in this football game, and that would mean there's no out of bounds, okay? Which means that people could be tackled out into the stands, out in the parking lot. People are running everywhere. It's chaotic, right? There's nowhere where this game could be kept in between some lines. But when you set the lines on the sideline, they have to stay within those bounds. So as soon as they step on that white line, out of bounds, dead ball, next play, right? I'm sure you've played basketball where y'all said no out of bounds. You played 21 and you had 19, no out of bounds. I gotta go get this bucket, right? So now you're running in the grass, you're dribbling because everybody's coming after you, trying to make moves. It's chaotic. There's no scene where everything is kept in one space. We have to understand that there's principles, there's placement, there's everything that's necessary for freedom to go down in parameters, in guidelines, in structure, in direction. So if I choose not to follow that, my question is, am I really free? I would ask that to somebody who chooses to reject the idea of a moral standard, to reject the idea of a standard at all. Are you really free? Right? Like, are you really free? Or are you just kind of going with the wind and you've kind of misinterpreted, you've changed definitions, you created your own to suit the lifestyle you want, to suit the lifestyle you want to live. And by all means, we all have the opportunity to do that. But that doesn't make it right. I guess Jordan Peterson says it like this, but he was talking to I think it was a news anchor. He was invited on. I think she raised a question about certain things that are offensive to people. Why, like some of the things you say, it's pretty offensive to people. Why are you okay with offending people? She asked some kind of question like that. And he said, yeah, well, I have to be okay with being offended in order to even have a conversation like this and be at risk of offending you for the sake of the conversation. Otherwise, there's nothing to be said. It can't be said. And we don't have any business being here. So it's a question to people who don't know how to answer it offensive. But to people who are learning to be equipped to deal with it, it breeds a space of conversation. This is a legit question that a lot of people have, and I don't think they realize that their worldview that they carry, they have to answer the same question. And oftentimes they don't, and other worldviews they don't question with the same attitude. But here's why. Because there's no other polarizing, world-changing worldview than Christianity.
That's right.
There's no other one. The words and claims that Jesus makes, the transformation of life that we see through the text, the historical relevancy that we see, that we have access to, the case for Christ, evidence that demands a verdict, all these things. There's no polarizing faith. So they're okay with the Hindus and Buddhists and Jainists and all of that, because their motto isn't to come and challenge where they are. Their motto is to just, hey, as long as we all can get together and be inclusive.
Here's what happens. When we think about those other faiths, great, just think about it like this. We think about those other faiths. It's all about you.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about you becoming your best self. It's all about you ascending to the highest you. It's all about you. So now that points back to this ideal of free thinking. That's what happens. This is about me. This is about me exploring the greatest part of me. When God's like, nah, this isn't about you. This is about all of us. So yeah, it makes sense for those folks to run down this lane and say, this is exactly what I want to do. Your analogy about the football, I haven't heard that before. That was great. Imagine not having a friggin' out of bounds line. Imagine that. I mean, you literally couldn't have fans. Like at some football, you literally couldn't have fans. You couldn't even have the team stand on the sideline.
Right.
There would be no out of bounds. There'd be no place for people to go. So, really, really, really important, man, for us to understand this ideal of, is Christianity a crutch? Does it take away our ability to think? Are we not really free? And other people thinking that the freedom, your definition of freedom too, is just outstanding, man. It's great. Let me read this to you. Check this out. This dude, the question, is Christianity a crutch for the weak-minded? Now, this answer came from 2 years ago, but listen to this dude. He said, I wouldn't say so much weak-minded, because there's so many strong-willed religious nuts. But yeah, I know what you're saying. And for the time being, I'm going to say yes, religion is for the weak-minded. Absolutely. More than weak-minded, though, is their total and complete willingness to throw away, listen to this, common sense, reason, logic, and the laws of physics that take hundreds and thousands of years for humans to develop through evolution. And this, my friends, is just unacceptable. Far worse than being weak-minded. At least weak-minded people don't know how stupid they are. It is the ones who are educated and still continue to follow blindly who are the real tragedy and horrific story of religion. Christianity should be the new name for the toilet paper so that at least it could be considered useful for something. I find this to be very interesting, this guy's response. His name's Jim Morrison. He says here that it takes hundreds and thousands of years for human development through evolution for us to be able to come to this. So here we go again. Talking about this ideal, right? Talking about this ideal of we will get it right. We will know as a group, as a culture, we will get it right. No, we will not get it right. That's why people protest now. That's why people stand up now. That's why people have their differences now about stuff that they think is right or wrong. Let's deal with the issue, right? That's why people think it. Is it before life? Is it after life? Is it 6 weeks? Is it 24 weeks? Is it? Everybody has their own thoughts and opinions about it, but God has one. It's just, there's just one. Life is valuable. Life starts with God. As soon as they say you are pregnant, as far as God is concerned, it is a life. Now you have other people on all other spectrums deciding, nah, we don't believe that. They even started talking about like legitimately saying, if you decide that after a little while you just don't want this kid at a certain age, we can go ahead and just dust them off and be like, yeah, that's not what I was intending to do. So let's go ahead and just chalk that up. That's crazy stuff. That's where we are. We can't do it. He says that Christians throw away common sense, reason, logic, and the laws of physics. Can I tell you something? We use all of that.
Uh-oh.
Every single bit of that is used in what we do. We just don't develop it through evolution. We develop it through the gospel, through the word of God, through the continual facts that we see in the text. He said, far worse than being weak-minded is how stupid they are and uneducated they are to still continue to follow blindly. See, this is where things go wrong. When people start to use words like uneducated and stupid and following blindly. How does he know that we're following something blindly? This is a person who's probably never read a Bible, who's probably never sought out, like I told you before, never sought the truth out and has decided based on how they feel or where they came from, this is going to be how I'm going to talk about this. Probably ask them, what about the scripture? What do you know about it? They don't know, but they use that type of terminology. So there's always an attack on the faith to make themselves seem right. So to Jordan Peterson's point, I have to risk the same thing that you have to in order to get to this place of truth. That's what has to happen. It's just the way that it works. So anyway.